Om Shanti, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on slave mind versus mind of a self-sovereign. So good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. But we will be today looking at the mind, which can be either a dangerous master or a beautiful servant, depending on who's using it. And so we will take a few moments of silence, and in that silence, see if we can try and grasp the perspective from eternity. The being of light, that is the true self. Is an embodiment of truth. This being is storyless. Descriptionless. Imageless. The being of light. He forever is untainted by any story in that virtual reality game called story. He's forever, eternally, an embodiment of truth. He's not defined by his mind. He's not defined by the thoughts his mind creates. He's beyond it all. Forever selfless, forever benevolent, forever godlike. Holding the awareness of the self as this invisible player. And try and grasp this truth. Keeping this perspective of eternity. And from that space, experience the next 1 hour. If being limited takes over, come back to your unlimited self. In a second. Would like to share this video with you, and it's very useful to see how the right perspective can differentiate between the life of a slave or a master. So if you see on your screen right now, you should see a few slides, especially the one with the lady right now, could be at the beach. But there's a lot of blue around her behind. And she's, if you really carefully look and zoom out a little bit more, you'll see she is by the swimming pool. And then we realize when we zoom out more, that she's actually on a boat, relaxing with the sea behind her. And it's like zoom out more, and you see there's a bigger boat. And we see different people on this boat. Now you realize something different. That was just a picture. But what was that picture of a cruise liner for a holiday? And if you go further out, you see it was on the bus side of the bus in a busy city. And it was a cruise liner advertisement. Then we see something totally different, as if in a mirror. And actually, it's not a mirror, it's a TV screen. Then we see the whole thing as though it's not just a TV screen, but somebody watching it in the desert. And if we keep zooming out like that, we see we get to a point where we zoom out of this entire Earth planet. And what you actually see is when we use the Paris intellect that helps us zoom out of this theater, it's a very wonderful experience of how we can shift the perspective. And with the transformation of this perspective, the shift in this perspective is what we will be refining in this seminar. Sorry, yeah. So we don't know what we don't know. These are the famous words of Plato. As always, would like to reorient ourselves with this real self that each one of us is. And we need to use the Paris intellect, the best apparatus, as the very first step always, because it enables the soul to see what God sees. And it completely changes the game. As we saw, when we zoom out, we can see the bigger picture. We can see things which we were making big were actually very small, not even relevant. So we see that the bigger map is why we see God as being knowledgeful, because he's always holding that bigger map in his mind. He's always seeing this little tiny drama here, which we will be looking at it from a different perspective today as a virtual reality game. This is the way we are going to look at drama, because this is how God looks at this drama. He knows that the real world, the real people, the real family resides here. And what is happening here is just happening like on a TV screen, like a virtual reality show. And that is why we have two options. Either we live in this world as though this is the true world, or we live in this world and see this virtual reality game and enjoy both the worlds. So one who is caught up in this virtual reality game is this tiny being of light today. It's truly in a state of delusion, because he's thinking he belongs to this game. But actually, when he is confused and deluded like that, he's neither useful to himself or to others. But if he's awake, like he is here, then he can be disproportionately useful, right? So, what we are planning to do is going into the experience of the self and journey of the self sovereign that the soul is, to understand the contrast very clearly today. Because complete silence, solitude, and sweetness of the true self is extremely nourishing for the soul, for the self sovereign soul. And more he experiences this sweetness, silence, and solitude, it strengthens him, it empowers him to come and play this virtual game with clarity, with all the complications, with all the action that is going on in this virtual game. He, the one who's outside of it, can play it with clarity. in fact, would say that there's a very important study done by WHO, and it is called the gaming disease. And in this, the WHO has said that this has become a very grave, serious matter, and they've put it in medical books also now, called this game, that is the video games and the virtual reality games that people play. And what happens is that the one who's playing completely gets immersed in that game to such a great extent that he completely shuts out his world around him, his family around him, his friends around him, completely shuts everyone out. And he's immersed in the game to such an extent that he starts thinking those characters in the game as his family and the characters in the game as his friends and also the character that he has in the game as himself to that extent. And that is why it's very important to know that this is from a spiritual angle. If we look at it, it's something very similar that is happening. Would like to share an email from one of the mothers who shared this very nice experience, which was very enlightening. I would like to share it in her own words. Her email was that she sent it to Rini, and she said that she noticed that whenever her son is playing video games, he's so into the game that she hears him saying things like, I died. Meaning, when his character or his avatar in the story dies, he says, I died. Or anything happens to the character, he says, it happened to him. Then she doesn't like hearing those words come out of her child's mouth. So she's immediately quick to point out. Let's say his name was Robert. Robert, remember you are just playing a game? Remember what you're supposed to say instead? And taught him to say things like link the name of the character and then say the character died. So always asking him to be aware of that. It is exactly the same way with us souls. In her email, she wrote, we completely get absorbed in this virtual game of life called drama, and we start saying I to everything the character is doing. Complete mixturity at many levels. Also, just like how a mother does not like to hear those words come out of a child's mouth, so too our true Father, Supreme Mother, does not like us to be attached to these characters that we are playing and call those characters as I and me. That is why Father keeps reminding that you are here just to play a game. Very enlightening, right? This was a beautiful observation by the one of the souls who's practicing Raj Yoga as well, and it was really important to know, and it is very important for us to know to what degree is that invisible player caught up in this character called Rini and disconnected from the reality, there's complete emotional disconnect from the real home. The soul is not experiencing its real feelings. The soul is not experiencing its real security because it's so completely caught up trying to find security in the game, success and progress in the game, feeling happy and excited about things happening in the game. And so, soul is really made to experience silence and solitude and then come into action and sound in that state of silence and solitude, then be detached and involved in the game. But we can see to what great degree are we immersed. So the invisible player, that is these stars, they know what real life is, but only when they are not devoured by this virtual game. But how does this invisible player know he's not lost in the game? We have to check for ourselves. So, the one who's not caught up in the game, his passions and feelings and happiness is incorporeal. It's based on true world. His happiness and sorrow is not based on the game. And one who's caught up in this game, his happiness and his sorrow are because of this virtual game. And this virtual reality, the one who's always out of this virtual reality is the Father, Supreme Father. And he comes and awakens us that for a few seconds and minutes, give this contrast very clearly and then keep building upon it. So, what is it that makes this invisible player drown in this virtual world? And that is ego. Ego is based on virtual world. And we say that when that ego is what does not want the soul to come out of this virtual world. So the invisible player, what is his role now? He has to come out of this virtual reality because only the absolute truth, in the light of this truth, will the ego disappear. That is why ego tries to make this game more interesting and create better virtual games, more glitter and glamour in this game, so that the soul doesn't want to come out of this virtual game. But God says, I cannot change the game for you, but I can truly help you, give you different glasses, and you can zoom out and see the truth. Have the right perspective and see the truth. Who's the real player and who's the character? They are two different entities. So we are going to see how is the self-sovereignty created and why mind has become a master today. So soul is in the game, but the soul is really not off the game. But today it's like bound by the game, by this virtual game completely. His perspective is all about sucked into the game, zoomed into the game. So we will start with understanding life as a game. And one nice definition of life is interaction between soul and its environment. That is the virtual game. We're not talking just about the ozone layer, but we are talking about the people, possession, and positions. This is all in the game. This is soul's environment, this body, and then through this mind, he's seeing this game as he's so sucked into it as his real life. So, invisible soul is interacting with this environment. All of this can rule the mind of the soul if he forgets who he is. Completely the opposite of a self sovereign. Soul comes in this world as self sovereign, and as they get lost, virtual game, he has become a slave of this game. All that is required to be self sovereign in this environment is divine harmony in the awakened state with souls who are also playing with you this game, but all are lost right now. It could be a scene of a job, it could be living with someone scene, or it could even be a temperature in the room scene. So, where there is divine harmony, there is peace. When there is mismatch between the soul and his environment, there is sorrow and stress. The moment soul thinks, I am my body, there is disharmony with nature. And with the law of nature is it will support and reward the truth and it will penalize the falsehood. And so this is a deep need of each and every soul to experience this divine harmony with the environment. And the worst relationship is when the environment becomes the sovereign and the soul becomes a slave. Invisible soul who came as a guest here to play is now battling with everyone and everything in its environment in this virtual game. And that is what was meant was to serve him is actually now giving him sorrow. We'll take a model that will in the present world help us understand the slave mind is we will see this virtual game as a prison. And what happens in this model of a prison? In the model of a prison, there is a prison officer, which is the virtual game, the environment, and a prisoner, which is the soul, which has become a slave today because it's asleep. So the prison officer, the environment decides for the prisoner. He has no choice. He may decide to give him a nice weather day today, or may even decide to give him chocolate but the prisoner is happy. And every character and situation in the virtual game environment has become a prison officer today who may decide to make the invisible player unhappy. And the prisoner doesn't choose, but officer and characters and circumstances in this virtual game choose how to feel. So, I have a question for all of you. If you could be prompt in answering this question, do you think you have created a master slave relationship? And if so, have we created our own masters in confusion? Who are they? What are they? Any answers?
They're saying yes, and we are slaves of everything external, like family,
Very,
boss,
uh-huh. Yeah, very good. Family,
praise.
praise, boss, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yes, we have. So it's like we have really created masters. So this is an example, and we will see from a different perspective this time, not just as two people, but we'll take these two invisible stars who are lost in this virtual game. Thinking, this star is thinking, I am Larry, and this invisible Claire is thinking, I am John in this video game, completely forgetting that they are beings of light from the home of the Supreme. Now, let's say they're playing the role, they have this in the game, they're playing the role of two friends. So Larry expects from John that John should invite him over for a party because he's throwing some party, right? So, this expectation, I want to be invited, is going to really make him go to sleep. The moment the expectation is created by this invisible player, it means he has gone to sleep. And the moment the soul behind Larry has created this expectation, the other is in charge to fulfill that expectation. So now the character in this virtual game called John can disappoint the sleeping angel who now feels he must be respected through Larry, right? So the invisible player is now subservient to the desires of his character. He's subservient to the relationships of this character in the game and the nature of this character in the game because he himself has completely forgotten himself. So the invisible player, believing himself to be Larry, has no choice now because he really has started believing he is Larry. So this invisible player, Larry, gives power to John to make him happy or to make him sad or unhappy. He has created a master and it has become a slave. The opposite of self sovereign, one has become a prisoner of one's confusion. So is he really just a slave to the character John, or is he slave to his own character as well?
His own as well.
Yeah,
Both.
he's a slave first to his own character. So the soul, the invisible player behind Rini, if starts thinking I am Rini, then it will be subservient and a slave to everything that Rini goes through. Rini's thoughts, Rini's feelings, Rini's emotions. The soul has completely forgotten its own identity. So that is why it's very important that the players are completely, if are identified with the character, they become slaves. And here it is a role of two friends. It could be anyone and anything. How did it all start? Just by being caught up. Just by being caught up in these virtual characters. That is all. and then creating expectations in this game, which is constantly changing and unpredictable. This is ignorance. So now, this slave mind, how do we know this is a slave mind? Because now Larry did not get invited by John. His mind will continuously be pulled there again and again based on the feeling of rejection of his character in that tiny box. And the invisible players are drowning and they're defeated by the expansion. And Larry and John are part of that expansion. Rennie is part of that expansion. The invisible player may be playing the part of a king or a subject. It doesn't matter. It's still just a game. The character in the game is not real. The eternal being is the real being of light. But today he is subjugated to every desire, everything in the game as real. And he feels the game owes him something. There should be justice in the game for him, the Larry he thinks he is. Is it possible to have zero expectations and be in this world?
We're getting mixed answers. Yes, no.
Uh-huh. Yes, both are right, but it will depend on what your perspective is. The invisible player has to step out of this virtual reality game. Until and unless he steps out, he cannot be truly a self sovereign. There will be some subtle desire, some subtle expectation that will keep him held and keep his mind pulled in this virtual reality game. Whereas what the way to come out of it is and to be able to experience the real mom and dad. It's a supreme father, the real brothers. This is the real family, the home of silence and solitude and sweetness. Really, from here, he can sit and watch the game with amusement, and he will never be a slave. So he's involved in the game, but he's detached because he knows that this Larry that he's playing the character of, Larry may get rejected, Larry may get insulted, Larry may get harmed, Larry may get defamed, but the soul behind Larry, he cannot be touched by anything that happens to Rennie or to Larry because he knows he is beyond the game. His reality that he's the player and Rennie or Larry is just a character in the game. And character means nothing for the real player. It's just a character in the game. It's lifeless. So that is why it's the most fascinating thing to see the game as a game, complete independence from this virtual reality. And the spell of this game becomes zero. Slavery ends. And so it's so nice to know that this game cannot harm you, even in the slightest. So don't mix the true life of the soul that you are with this virtual life. The story cannot change anything about the real you that you are. But the moment you cross the line and you start thinking of yourself as this character, then the happiness of Larry becomes the happiness of the soul. The soul is getting praised, and Larry is getting praised. The soul feels happy. Tomorrow, Larry may get insulted, and soul feels unhappy. It's completely in a game of slavery today. So we'll give an example of what is the life of a soul who's self-sovereign and the life of a soul who is completely caught up in the game or half caught up in the game. So we call it a life of a yogi, the one who is out of the game. He feels naturally he's from the sky. He's visiting from this dimension. He's visiting this game and playing this game for a very short time. His father is the supreme father. His family is the supreme family. His feelings, most importantly, his feelings are incorporeal. He knows that he is not an extension of Larry. And he's always a guest here. And he knows that he doesn't get stuck in the character Larry. He's very aware of it. He does not want to get stuck here. He may even be here for many years playing this game, but he always feels that his home is beyond. Whereas the one who practices yoga is the one who feels he's from this physical dimension, and then he creates 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then he experiences this home for 15, 20 minutes, and then he comes back. So he practices yoga or he practices meditation to help him in his job, to make his blood pressure better or his relationships better, rather. He's not working on his inner stage. He's not working from that perspective of being that soul who already is a rich prince, an eternal prince. He tries to make Larry virtuous. He tries to make Larry more spiritual and tolerant. But that is not what Raj Yoga is teaching. Raj Yoga is teaching us to truly come out of this game completely and have this perspective of the soul. I am an angel could just be a chant and may not mean much if the perspective is not changed. So the soul whose perspective is of a yogi will not try and find worthiness and immortality in the game through the character, but he will be playing with this toy as a toy. The challenge is that ego, as some people said, no, it's not possible. And why are they saying that? Because the mind of a slave is, it's the egos are there. And we all have it to some extent, but we are working on detaching from this mind of a slave and see the mind of a self sovereign. Ego doesn't want to die. Otherwise, game ends for ego. So just taking knowledge is not enough. But we really need to be able to see these egos from the mind of a self sovereign, is observing these egos in the slave of the mind and allowing himself to not be identified by this mind of a slave. Because if you identify with this mind of a slave, when you see ego, you will be disheartened, you will feel heavy, you will feel guilty, you will feel shame, you will feel you don't want to see, I don't want to know. And these are the feelings that will come because the self sovereign soul is sleeping and identified with the character. It's identifying with the egos of the character. It's very important to kind of know that this is how the self sovereign can truly first unidentify from the mind of the ego. So the soul can see the attachments in the Rini egoic mind, can see the attachments, can see the slavery, can see the desires, can see the expectations. But the self sovereign will not identify with those thoughts, with those feelings, because he is in his original state of mind. He is in his original, he's using the pure mind, and ego is using the impure mind. They are two separate things. Don't mix the two. The soul has a pure mind. And when it comes to when it starts playing the virtual game, it starts to identify itself with the game and the characters in the game. And that mind is what the soul needs to detach from. Soul can, and for that, what does one need to do? Finish this virtual game illusion completely. How? By reviving the scale of the wonder of the soul. How wonderful you are as a soul. How wonderful your home is. How wonderful your father is. Living in the details of your home, living in the details of how beautiful, immortal, silent, storyless being you are. Not out of arrogance. That is not Rini saying it. That is the soul experiencing its wonder, just like God experiences his wonder all the time. And only then can the slavery be ended. Would like to share this a little bit in detail with some examples which will help you understand it more deeply. So human consciousness is what is most all are caught in today. And human consciousness cannot be changed into angel consciousness. God comes and he plants a new seed. So instead of trying to make Larry consciousness into soul conscious, because this is a decaying tree, a decaying old tree, he says when he comes, die alive. Die alive to this old identity. Don't try to make this old identity new. This is a decaying tree because this identity has its own desires, complaints, priorities, preferences, sanskaras, emotions, and thoughts. This identity has its own package. So, Larry consciousness, Rini consciousness has its own package of all these emotions and preferences. And each branch has its own, so each character. So, Larry as a friend will have its own emotions and preferences. Larry as a father will have its own preferences and emotions and desires. To what extent can you change that? You change one, next will prop up. You change the other, the third will prop up. You can't do that. It's not possible. So when God comes, he says, you don't need to change Larry into a soul. You don't need to make Larry virtuous. You don't need to make Larry more tolerant. The soul needs to awaken to its original seed conscious stage. Who am I truly? We'll give an example because we can do checking and changing also in the ego consciousness. And it's a very beautiful example that one had an experience. Um, Somebody had called up and they were sharing that they are not able to sleep at night. They are feeling they were in a lot of pain. And they were sharing that they have taken all sorts of medical help to be able to go to sleep, but their mind is thinking something and their mouth is speaking something else. And they know that, but they can't control it. Mind is running so fast and racing so fast. So now there were two options for the soul behind Rini. How would a soul conscious soul address and play this game in the virtual reality? And how would the ego address the situation? We will look at it. So, the ego consciousness, that is the Larry or Rini consciousness, it would try and give 10 different solutions to the soul. It would try and help the soul. It will try and fix the situation for the soul. It will try and solve the problem of the soul. Is that ego solving or is that the seed consciousness solving?
The ego.
Yeah, it's the ego solving. What would a soul conscious soul do?
Think of the other as a soul and pass on love and peace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, more, a little bit more.
Detach from the situation
Yeah,
and
and
try to heal.
what does that mean? Try to heal?
Connect to God.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is, of course, all these answers are right. And there is one more step that the soul can take. And the step that the soul can take is see that the character's role right now is to cry, to be sad, to be unhappy. Just focus on the blissful, eternal truth of that soul, that that soul is already happy, that that soul is already a blissful being of light, that that's and that can only be experienced by the one who himself is experiencing in that consciousness whilst listening to that story. And that being is completely holding on to that absolute truth of that soul. Nothing about its story can change the truth of that soul. And it will also experience for that soul, it will experience the love that all the souls are experiencing for each other in the story. So that soul will be experiencing love from all the souls, including the Father, in the story. And your focus is completely on that absolute truth. So nothing about the story. You're not trying to fix their situation. You're not trying to rescue them. You're not trying to firefight. You're just there to be a lighthouse, just shining light on their original nature, not identifying them with their tears, not identifying them with their sadness, not identifying them with their disease, not identifying them with anything. Because there's a very beautiful example that was given by one of the sisters, that Dadi Janki was one of the administrative heads who has passed on now, and she actually, one of the souls came to her and asked her that, Dadi, what if I have pure feelings for everyone and if others don't have pure feelings for me? So she gave a very beautiful answer to that. And she said that do not allow the egoic mind to ever believe that others don't have pure feelings for you. Because whatever, now this one is bringing its own understanding to it. Now, whatever is happening in that virtual box, Larry not liking Harry or Harry not liking Jerry, it does not matter because that is not the truth. The truth is all the souls have eternal love for each other. More that experience, that feeling of absolute love for each other at the level of truth, at the level of eternity is held. In the game, somebody could be insulting Rini, but that doesn't matter. The soul behind it is experiencing the love of that soul in the home. And that is the beauty that God wants us to experience. Experience the truth. And what happens in this virtual reality game? It's part of the virtual reality game. Don't try to make this real and make this forgotten. So it's extremely important to live in those feelings. So these feelings are different from the egoic feelings of the egoic mind. The egoic mind thinks that, oh, if I create a thought, then on that thought is based a feeling. But that is the egoic mind thought. We're not trying to change that at all. What the soul is doing is just experiencing its pure mind, which is a thoughtless mind in the home. When the soul is in the home, it's not thinking thoughts. It is experiencing and feeling highest feelings like God. And that awareness has to be awakened. And that is what detachment means. Complete unidentification with the egoic mind. And total identification with the seed mind. Zero identification with Larry mind and 100% identification with the seed mind. And we will see that how the tree of consciousness starts, why it's important to do that practice. Because it starts with the seed. God is the seed. And this is the path to self-sovereignty. It starts with seed consciousness. What is the function of the seed in a tree? The function of the seed in a tree, even if we look at the seed in nature, it actually makes other cells around it like itself. And it transforms the mud and the earth around it. And that creates growth and roots, which is also the same function for the roots as well. So now the consciousness of God and soul is really like that seed, completely different from this Larry consciousness, or we call it donkey consciousness actually. This is totally different from the seed consciousness. It's not based on what the old tree was like. It's a new seed completely. So God is playing the part of the seed and coming into the world of this mud of ego and Ravan. That is all these identities and the characters of this virtual game. There's a lot of mud, but there are these roots and the seed. What do? God does the work of transforming first the roots and make them same like Him. And then He has the power to do it through His vision, through His attitude, and through His perspective, because He knows that my children are all from here. They're just playing this virtual game and they've just got caught up in it. He knows that very clearly. And the ones who are doing that work, they are also doing the same for others. Because the ones who are doing this work, they too know that I am not this character. So if the soul can disidentify itself with this character, the soul can disidentify others with their character. Until the unidentification is there with this character, the soul cannot unidentify others with their character. It's not possible. And so that's why the seed work, roots have to create time to be with the seed and to be like the seed, to perform the role like the seed, have yoga with the seed. So we are seeing that this is a family of souls here in their characters, their bodies, and souls in the purest form. And this consciousness is the foundation for self-sovereignty. So father's sanskaras are the sanskaras of the new seed. This is what it is. All these old sanskaras of the old character, of the old personality of Rini, they don't belong to the soul. Is that degree of detachment there? Because even ego can detach. But when ego detaches, it's still holding on to that personality of Rini and then trying to detach. But when God comes, He says, completely die alive to it. Father's sanskaras are your sanskaras. You are that seed. You are the new seed now. You start afresh. You're born again. And so He comes and He works on the seed. He doesn't work on the old tree. He just wants the soul to be revived and let go of this personality. He holds the invisible player in his original eternal state, in the face of all the ego identities that are there in this tiny little box. So right now, the soul could be sitting in God's heart and can see, yes, Rini as a person, Rini personality may have many forms of egos, many forms of desires, many forms of expectations. But that's not who I am. I am this being of light, a new seed like God. So the effort is not in trying to shed and transform the old sanskaras. The effort is truly in 1 second, liberate yourself in life and come back to this identity of who you are, who you truly are. And so wanted to really bring that to the awareness that many a times we do spend a lot of time trying to change thoughts, trying to change feelings based on the level of this consciousness. But when one is truly here, one doesn't need to change anything. What one needs to do is let the higher consciousness dissolve everything. Let the higher consciousness see the absurdity of ego. Let the higher consciousness see the silliness of ego. Let the higher consciousness see the fiction as a fiction. Let the higher consciousness see the truth as truth. Nothing to do with this virtual game. Because more we are drowning here, more we are trying to then drag our feet out of it, drag our way out of it, and that is why eternal happiness is not experienced. There's fluctuation up and down, up and down. Why? Why is there fluctuation in happiness when the being is a being of bliss? Why is there fluctuation? Why is the stage not constant? Can the being observe even that every passing emotion, every passing thought, every passing temporary feeling with complete sakshi and sati awareness, which is the detached observer with the companion. And in that stage of being sakshi and sati, thoughts come, thoughts go, in front of the one who is thoughtless. There is no need to try and stop the flow of anything. Just observe. Sakshi with sati, observer. And that is what is true soul consciousness, where the soul is not imagining itself to be a star or a soul somewhere, because he's beyond imagination. He's not trying to see God with his mind's eye, because he sees as God sees. He's not trying to see God, but he's seeing everything as God sees. He's not trying to see himself as a soul, because he already is a soul. And that is the awareness and practice that we would take a moment of silence. And in this moment, the being of light, the seed, who is not an extension of Larry or Rini, completely independent of this package of old sanskaras of Larry, this invisible player. He's out of the game. God's identity is the seed of his own identity. He does not see happiness as something to be experienced at the end of the journey. But like God, he can ride the waves with joy. The higher the wave of Maya and Raman, greater the joy. Because he knows how to surf. He knows that these waves that the drama sends his way, or the virtual game has, all the scenes of this virtual game are equally good. So if Rini sometimes feels sad or Rini sometimes feels happy, how does that matter to that invisible player? His happiness is untainted and untouched by the character in the game. His life is with the Father, with the invisible brothers. It's an effortless effort for him to love himself and not allowing any identification with Rini or Larry to touch him. And so he can maintain his self-sovereignty because he is a self-sovereign. This invisible player. His life is zoomed into his home. And he can see in that tiny box this cacophony of sounds, this variety of scenes, and the character has its own ups and downs, but the being of light, he's separate from the character. And he's the one who's at the helm. He's the one who God loves. And in that awareness, praise of one is praise of all. Success of one is success of all. He doesn't know what competition is, what comparison is. He's foreign to these ideas because he only sees stars of success. That's his relationship with all the stars in the home. And those are the higher feelings that he experiences whilst playing the game. And if the character has some things pop up here and there every now and then, he doesn't get confused. Because he knows he's a being like God, loved by God, storyless, descriptionless. He's always out of the story, out of the game, as a blissful, invisible player. Om Shanti. Brahma Kumaris is a non-profit organization which was founded in 1936 and has global presence in 130 countries. And in this, Bay Area center, we offer Raj Yoga meditation courses for free. And we have seminars every weekend. And it's led by Sister Kusum Kejriwal, who has really surrendered and dedicated her life for God's task. And she came here from Mumbai 25 years ago. We have the website, and you can get all the information on our website. The upcoming events are Raja Yoga meditation course is offered in English and Hindi, and there is live meditation every day from 7:30 to 8 p.m. And there are webinars, Healing the Self while Healing Others. It's a special webinar for medical professionals. Tomorrow, Sunday, March 14th from 5 to 6 p.m. From 5 p.m. It's from 5 to 6 p.m. Healing the Self while Healing Others.